This episode is brought to you by Klaviyo, the platform that powers smarter digital relationships. With Klaviyo, you can activate all your customer data in real time, connect seamlessly with your customers across all channels, guide your marketing strategy with AI-powered insights, recommendations, and automated assistance, deliver experiences that feel individually designed at scale, and grow your business faster. Power smarter digital relationships with Klaviyo. Learn more at klaviyo.com/Spotify. That's KLAVIYO.com/Spotify.
You may not have heard, but in recent years, some of Portland's most well-known quote-unquote independent restaurants were quietly bought up by a local corporate holdings company. Places like Bamboo Sushi, Sizzle Pie, and Ava Jeans are all owned now by Sortis Holdings. But now there's concerns that Sortis Holdings is in financial trouble. So where does that leave all the restaurants they own? So today on CityCast Portland, we're talking with freelance writer Alice Wolf. She's been following the story for Eater Portland and has a bit more insight on what this new corporate overlord means for some of our favorite dining spots. It's Tuesday, December 19th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. For those who maybe have never heard of Sortis Holdings and they're just still trying to wrap their head around it, like what do they do? Like, who are they?
So Sortis is a holding company, which I didn't fully understand what that even meant. It's essentially a corporation or an LLC that owns assets, other companies, but doesn't do any of their own personal business workings. They don't produce goods or services. They just own shares. And so Sortis is based in Portland, but they have brands across the West Coast. They're owned by Paul Brennecke, who is from a real estate family, big real estate, commercial real estate developing background. And he has kind of a checkered past to an extent, I would say, in the eyes of some Portlanders, just because he does have a connection to Bain Capital, which was co-founded by Mitt Romney. Mm-hmm. He also has partnered with private investment firms like Starwood Capital to get Amazon into the downtown Seattle's Macy's building. But yeah, that's Sortis.
So they essentially hold a ton of shares of these companies. Mm-hmm. So in a way, they do own them then,
right.
But they don't run them.
Yeah, more or less.
I think that
all of the the day-to-day, all of the companies, have their own sort of inner workings and business people. They're all, attached to Sortis and in touch with the board, from what I understand. The people on the board of Sortis, my understanding is that they're not consistently in these restaurants.
Well, so what are some of these restaurants that they do own? Yeah,
totally. So Rudy's Barbershop, they also own all of Submarine Hospitality, which is a hospitality group that was formed a few years back that includes, right now it includes Ava Jeans, Chicoria, and Tusk. It used to include the Woodsman, but they closed back in August, I want to say. And in its place, there is this mission-style burrito shop, Los Burros Supremos, that just recently opened.
Oh, they own that?
Mm-hmm.
Did they invest in their opening, or did they grab them once they opened?
That's my understanding, is that they helped Adon Fausto open. Yeah.
I hear they have really good queso. That's all
I've heard very good things. I haven't been yet. And then they also, this seafood-focused La Leñadora is opening up also through Submarine. And then there's a lot of coffee brands. There's Coffee Business, CC Coffee, Water Avenue. Used to own Barista, but that's no longer on their website. And then they own a lot of hotel brands. So there's the Farm at Carpinteria, the Woodlark Hotel in Portland, Thornburg Ranch in Bend, Mayflower Park Hotel in Seattle. And then there was this big situation with Ace Hotel.
Yeah, I heard they were about to buy them and then something fell through.
Yeah, exactly.
And then is that when the alarm bells started to ring, when you're just like, oh, they couldn't buy Ace, something's going on?
I think that alarm bells have been ringing for different people at different times. I think that for some people, when that deal first started seeming like it was going to go through, I think that's when a lot of people realized who Sortis was and was kind of wait, they're buying Ace Hotel? That's kind of big. Mm-hmm. So, and that was back in January. And that was when I think I first really started paying attention to what they were up to. But then, I think that the Ace situation falling through, that's a bit more recent. And I think that it's definitely making some people question what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. So Alice, why do you think they went after these brands?
It's hard for me to say for every single one. I think that each one is probably different. And it's hard to really know their true intentions. Some of these brands were saved from bankruptcy. Bamboo Sushi and Rudy's Barbershop, for example, my understanding is that those businesses probably would have gone under if they didn't have some kind of corporate backing to come through.
But it wasn't like a benevolent, like, oh, we love these businesses, we're going to save them. They just found, they were like, we can make money by saving them is what I'm assuming.
That is my assumption and understanding. Of course, it's hard to totally understand their true intentions with buying. I think that like in some ways, buying a brand that would otherwise go under does feel like an act of empathy. But in other ways, it feels like it's just this screaming deal for Sortis. And that it's like, of course, it's a great deal for them. This brand is not worth much anymore, but once was. Maybe they can make this brand worth more again.
So what does it mean for these businesses in terms of operation when they get, bought up by a holding company like this? I mean, I'm assuming those who were going bankrupt, they get saved, but like if they're not involved in the day-to-day, like how are they going to make sure this company doesn't go bankrupt again?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that like they really have operations managers throughout all of these different businesses. So like Submarine has their own sort of crew who run Submarine restaurants. Bamboo has their own, like, I think that they're all kind of separate. And I mostly feel like I'm familiar with like the employee side.
Yeah. So what's going on? I mean, what are they saying? Do they think that the quality drops? Are they seeing an investment in what they're doing? Do they feel supported? Because I mean, I'm hearing mixed messages from that.
I think that it makes sense that there are mixed messages because I think everybody's having different experiences. I think that there are some people who like the idea of working for a corporation in which it's a very much like a clock in, clock out. You're not taking work home with you. You're getting paid decently well. The benefits are solid for restaurants. It's hard to get good benefits in a restaurant. If you work more than 30 hours there, you get 9 paid holidays. You accrue time off, whether you're part-time or full-time, actually. You get a 401k match. You get comprehensive health insurance. Those are hard benefits to give as a small business owner and to find as a restaurant employee. Other people that I've spoken with don't really want to be putting their time and energy into a restaurant in which they don't really know the owner. There's not as much passion that the owner has to emit, it's just kind of like what your priorities are. So I know some people who really appreciated working for them, but there's a lot of turnover because there's not as much, I think, from what I can tell, there's not as much investment that the restaurant workers have in the business versus some of these small businesses that you see throughout Portland where there's been the same staff for 5 or 10 years, for way longer than that even, because they know the owner, they work with the owner, and they feel committed to helping that owner see their vision through.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never thought of it that way. There's something so sweet about that. I'm like, is that what happens? I had no idea.
Yeah, it depends. It depends. But I think some people that I spoke with definitely really appreciate knowing who they're putting their time and energy into working for.
Yeah. But is there like a noticeable drop in quality in any of the restaurants that Sortis has bought? Like, have you heard from the customers like, oh, there was before Sortis and after Sortis?
I have heard from customers a little bit of that. I think that there are tons of amazing chefs, baristas, bartenders that work at all these businesses that are working really hard. So I don't want to ever question their effort, skill, commitment. But I mean, I think, one person that I interviewed for the Eater article that I wrote about all of this described it as like, now it feels like Ava Jeans brought to you by Chase Bank. That it has this of like, that it has this kind of, more corporate feel. I also, though, talked to the operations manager for Submarine, and he was like, we're putting in a lot of effort to not make it feel kind of cookie cutter. But I don't know, the minute that you're talking about a restaurant, to me, this is my personal POV, the minute that you're talking about a restaurant as a brand, it's kind of like, oh, like there's a little bit of a shift there. Like, oh, we're talking about like how this brand comes off. It's like, that just feels a little bit different immediately. Like I've worked in a lot of small businesses around Portland and I've never really heard it quite described that way.
Hearing this coming from you, a food writer in Portland, it does give me hope in where people's heads are and how they perceive our small businesses and our restaurants. Because, I mean, this, Alice, they're all brands. Everything's a brand.
Yeah.
Because I come from, I'm like showing my like emo cloak side, coming from marketing. At one point I did work at an agency and like everything, you just realize you're like, everything's a brand. Everything is, I'm just saying I'm being comforted by hearing what you're saying. Because in my head, I'm like, well, it's always, everything's a brand, even if it's like, even like my beloved Slims is a brand, like they have their whole thing that they don't care is a brand,
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, more on Sortis Holdings and what this means for the Portland food scene. I want to tell you one of the coolest gifts someone got for me. A few Christmases ago, my partner bought us both OMSI memberships. And it was so much fun. Like every OMSI After Dark, we make it a date night. And I even still have my pint glasses from Brewfest. And right now through January 7th, OMSI memberships are 15% off, on top of invitations to member-only events and discounts or even free passes for things like OMSI After Dark. There's always an exciting exhibit to experience. Like right now, you can learn all about our favorite yacht destroyers, at Orcas, Our Shared Future, or learn about the animal kingdom's coolest methods of self-defense at Staying Alive, Defenses of the Animal Kingdom. And let's not forget that a membership also gets you admission to their mainstay attractions like the planetarium and the USS Blueback, which is a real submarine you can explore. So spark your family's curiosity at OMSI, where there's adventure for visitors of all ages. Learn more at omsi.edu. That's omsi.edu. Look, we all know dating sucks. But what if I were to tell you I know of a less annoying way to meet a bunch of potential suitors of your desired sexual orientation and gender expression? I gotta win some kind of Portland award for that sentence. Anyhow, Lovely Dating is offering a new and better way to speed date. Their events are designed to feel casual, low pressure, and make connecting with singles in real life as fun and easy as possible. For one, the meetups are hosted at charming local venues like coffee shops and breweries. I think one meetup was even at a kava bar, and there's no weird host or name tags. Participants use descriptors like what you're wearing to find each other and receive fun text prompts throughout. And after each date, you can discreetly match or not. If a match is mutual, Lovely takes care of the rest. Could not be easier. So sign up and get dates at lovelydating.com. That's LUVVLY dating.com. That's LUVVLY dating.com. I feel like a few months ago, I had never heard of Sortis Holding, and now they're like mentioned in nearly every food article. So like, I feel like the food writers and, reporters started seeing signs of trouble from this company a few months ago. Like what happened? What happened from, there are these like this benevolent, machine that buys these failing companies that everybody loves in Portland, or, whatever.
Yeah.
When was the something weird is happening?
Well, I think it's a mix. I first started, there's this meme account called Northwest MCM Wholesale, and they posted a bunch of memes about the Ace buyout and Sizzle Pie and all this stuff way back, I think, I want to say March. And so I think that was when a lot of people started to have, their ears open to this stuff. And then I started working on this article in the spring and throughout the summer. But all of that, and I put it out in September, and that was all before any lawsuits happened. And so since the article that I wrote came out, there's been a bunch of other articles about these lawsuits that have come to fore in the most recent, just in the last 3 months.
Against Sortis?
Against Sortis. So lawsuits for unpaid bills, that it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars that they're being sued for and that they owe collectively. There also is a lawsuit about an alleged wrongful termination of a kind of higher up. I believe that she was working at Bamboo Sushi, and she is suing because she didn't get her severance of 6 months salary, health insurance for 12 months, and a huge stock share. And Sortis has since claimed that she didn't take her severance package. There's been some back and forth, but they're still kind of in the weeds with some of these lawsuits. So I think that we're not sure how things are going to shake out.
So they're not paying their bills.
Right.
There's, evidence of employees not being happy about how they were handled. But weren't there also 2 big closures in November?
Yeah, there's been a handful of closures. So CC Coffee and Rudy's Coffee, they both had outposts in Beaverton, and those both closed. The Woodsman closed, like I mentioned, in August. And then this Ace Hotel deal didn't go through I think that was in November.
But they're so big. I mean, I feel like it's like this huge ship, and if a little water comes in, it's still a huge ship, and they could just be like bloop bloop, But if Sortis were to go under, what happens to all these businesses that they own now? Which is, I feel like, a good chunk of the Portland brand. And here's the deal: I'm just gonna say it, Alice. A lot of these places, maybe not Ava Jean, but a lot of these places, to me, were already just corporate in a sense.
I have a lot of thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, they already felt you guys are no longer this little mom and pop biz. They're buying They're buying brands that have already performed very well.
And been branded.
Yeah. So like what would happen though if Sortis goes under?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's like pretty hard for me to say. I don't know exactly. I would imagine though that there would probably be another buyout. That it would be, if it's not Sortis, it would probably be another corporation who would come in. I mean, maybe some of these would really go down, and a lot of people would lose their jobs. Like certainly don't want that.
Are they still more stable, I suppose? Like these restaurants, a lot of restaurants did not make the hop over, post-pandemic. Do you think these like types of companies actually do bring a level of stability to the restaurant scene?
That's the question. That's really the question. Yeah. Because I think you really hit the nail on the head. Exactly. It's like, are they creating more stability, or are they taking away the personality and the individuality? I think that like owning and running a restaurant, regardless of who is the higher ups giving you money, whatever it is, like it's always going to be a gamble. It's obviously going to be a lot harder if you're an independent small business owner. But I just think that like finding security in restaurant ownership is probably very, very challenging. And it's still a really tumultuous time, like since the pandemic, it continues to be, Portland in particular has taken a long time to get out of the pandemic slump. People have a lot less money to spend. It's a really dark time in this country in many ways, in the world in many ways. So I think, having some amount of like financial backing from a corporation could totally be helpful, but it's, again, at what cost? Does that mean that we're losing a lot of personality? Does that mean that we're losing the core sort of tenets of these small businesses? And second of all, right, exactly. Like with these closures, it seems that there's maybe not the most reliable financing. It's not like a guarantee that your business is going to do so well.
Alice, are you saying capitalism is a sham?
Does it not work?
Are you saying this is all smokes and mirrors? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah,
no.
Turns
Get out of here.
Couldn't be.
No, couldn't be. Well, there are some iconic Portland restaurants, big brands or not. They're still very much associated with Portland. What does it mean for us as like people who eat?
Yeah.
That all these brands are now owned by a holding company like this.
Yeah.
Do you think that like Portland restaurateurs are going to be like, oh, you know what? This is our end goal now. We find a nice little Sortis holding, Yeah,
I think that I have so many thoughts on this. I think that like there's a lot at stake. I think that we have to think about why we're in a position in which restaurant owners would look to this and would maybe need something like this. On the consumer side, like it's tough. Like I said, I think that, supporting chefs, hospitality professionals, bartenders, baristas that you love can happen anywhere. And those roles totally exist at Sortis brands. But I think that generally speaking, like my personal priority is to try to be really putting more effort into supporting independently owned businesses. And I think that if we all collectively did, then we would be a lot better for it as a city. There's so many Portland establishments that have closed in the recent, few years that have been there forever. Zell's on Belmont, or like Pied Cow, that kind of like dessert spot on Belmont that was there for years too. And then, we are also having all these amazing chefs and business owners coming in and opening restaurants that I think are fantastic. I'm like thinking of like Malka or Mama Doot or Pepperbox, Locanta, Jerusalem Rose Market, the like Palestinian market. Like there's been so many amazing spots open and close. And I just think that like we're seeing a lot of voices that haven't been traditionally represented in Portland food history, and they're not getting enough support. And I think that like, again, I'm not saying that we should just totally abandon any support for all of these businesses, but like there's just a lot of places that I think have a ton of heart that exist in Portland that I really don't want to see go under.
Yeah. Well, again, Alice, thank you so much for hanging out with me and unraveling the Sortis enigma. Well, I'm just still trying to figure out like what is a holding company. I still feel like
I know
cool,
we're still on question one.
Yeah, I know. Well, once we wrap up here, I'm gonna go Google that. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really, really great to chat.
Well, that's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.